two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do 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 do. Pop pop pop. All right, Freedom Phil out here in the wasteland. Greetings, like subscribe. What am I talking about here in the Survival Pod today? I don't think you were ever meant to really own anything, at least anything that really matters. And the things you do believe you own, you spent so much time paying for them, dealing with them, that effectively they own you. No, your entire life is literally designed around a consumable, use one time, throw away payment plan versus things that could be better built that are totally sustainable. This is part of the reason, not to rag on them, but I don't take, the environmental movement seriously because I don't see people talking about these sort of things. Where am I going with this? This is Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. And I always turn up the video speed. And why do I say that? Because you should be watching this at 1.75. The channel name is literally the instruction. Turn up the video speed. Yeah, let's get into it, like, subscribe. It's like this, man. I've been watching all these videos about older style building, using thermal mass, using the exhaust from, say, a wood stove, where you burn it twice a day and you got a long channel, and it basically, heats up all these rocks, and the rocks radiate heat for hours. Like you do a 2-hour fire versus constant shoveling in wood. I see these designs and I think to myself, and one thing is pointed out occasionally in some of these videos, that the system, it's not meant to have you ever freed from needing to purchase something. The system is not designed that way. I mean, just look at the average person's life. What we think is life is a payment plan. To the point where if you do something, radical like what I've done, where I like van life, or I like being out in the middle of nowhere, whether it's the woods or the wasteland or even trucking. Trucking, even if I'm working, I don't have the bills that most of you have. And it's funny to me because it's like most people normal is getting screwed over. That's most people's life. And they don't even think it's getting screwed over. They're just like, well, that's life. That's the way it is. But when you start seeing better information out there of how to do things, you should question. You should have that question occasionally in your head, like, hey, why do we do it this way? And a simple answer is because if you have to constantly pay for something over and over again, someone has a business of selling you that. I mean, it seems pretty obvious that a lot of our medical, so-called medical knowledge isn't about healing people, for instance. It's about constantly getting them on pills for the rest of their lives. If you cure the person, you stop selling something, right? Most people can understand that at the very least. But what about everything else in your life? What about everything, the way it's structured, even the way we grow food in this country? I'll point some things out here. Let's start off with the farmer. Most farmers do not do hugelkultur. That's basically technology where you either have raised beds or buried underground logs that are rotting wood, decomposing wood, biochar, amend the soil, nitrogens and whatnot in the very early phase, like natural biodegradable stuff. And then effectively, you'll have soil that for 20 or 30 years will be producing God-tier soil. You basically are working on making terra preta. Now, it's fucking amazing what you can do with that. But you can't, run a normal tractor on that type of situation. They used to take swamps in the old world, and they filled them in with the logs and whatnot, and this is incredibly productive soil. But that didn't fit the modern tractor thing. And then the way we've taken a lot of the organic matter out of the soil, just because we've used it too much, so now we have to use a bunch of chemical fertilizers, chemical pesticides. The plants don't have the resistance. Where they're literally big and green, but it's mostly just from, whatever agrochemical nightmare we've thrown onto them. And every year that farmer has to go back and buy more and more. He has to buy the seeds. He has to buy everything. He can't grow from his own stock. Nope, he has to grow the special Monsanto seeds, just like the, petro agrochemical companies potash and all this other. He has to constantly add something, so it's a payment plan. It's not self-sustaining. I've seen these trees where grafting's been around for a long time, where a person had a tree that had like 4 or 5 different fruits all growing from one tree. And it was, especially made to where it had a hardier, rootstock trunk. The type of thing that could dive deeper for water and could handle cold snaps. I look at that and I'm like, that's genius technology. And then so let's take that genius technology and look at what people used to do with their front lawns. There was no lawn. And they might have had animals eating that. It was way back in the day. And then people wanted uniformity, clean lines, everybody wanted to have the royal type of front yard, but that became the standard. And so instead of growing food, like having a handful of trees that could produce multiple different fruits, all in one tree. So you have a handful of these trees. So you got fruit coming all throughout the growing season. And all these vegetables that could be growing in the yard, nope, it's just a straight Scots lawn. Producing you no food, no nothing, no anything. So now you're more reliant on the grocery store. These are just the simple ones. Think about your house for a second. Your standard house is horribly designed. I've been watching a lot of these videos about Nordic style houses, like pit style houses, earth shelters, where it actually uses either the earth or the snow. Like the snow load actually acts as insulation, much like the Inuits would understand. The snow would actually give you an R value, a high R value, and the house being built into the ground where it's applicable, of course, either in the ground or built with a mound design. The R value you get from that, and not only is the heating from the earth itself, like you go so many feet down below, you're getting 50, 60 degrees year round on most of the planet. Now think about this from a heating and cooling perspective. Our system is set up to where you need a furnace for the winter, or a wood stove or whatever, so you have to get fuel to have like a livable life. Like up at north where my house is, last winter, I had to be spending at least $100 or more. I wasn't even living like it was really well heated. I would have probably had to spend $150 to $200 a month to keep that house as comfortable as most people want. But if that house was built, and even though that house is super thick, very good, has a lot of thermal mass to it, well insulated, stays nice and cool during the summer, just open up the windows and close it. Has a great insulating value. Still, it's never going to be as good as a underground earth shelter house. Then you see these earth shelter houses with a central, fire thermal mass, rock thermal mass stove, where you burn for like 2 hours at one time of the day and 2 hours on the other time of the day. And you could cook on that same system. Pioneers and people over in the old country were doing this for ages. People up north in the northern tundras were building earth shelters because it worked. It's only in this last so many hundreds of years we have got away from things that actually are truly sustainable. And when I say sustainable, think about it not just from the fact, if you don't care about the planet, whatever, yeah, I get it. Captain Planet was kind of a lame show. But let me be honest about this. Think about it from a payment plan. Let's say, you have a situation where you got to pay $200 a month practically, and a little less, a little more, depending on what time of the year it is, to either keep your place heated or keep your place cooled. What if you could have a steady 50, 60 degrees all the time? How much would it really take to bump that up to 70? Especially if you had like a thermal mass rock heater, where basically it goes through, it's like a rocket stove and it burns for like 2 hours. Good enough to cook, heat, then it heats up all the rocks and then it just stays a nice radiant warmth. How much power would you really need to keep that place going? You could literally have a handful of solar panels to power all your lighting, all your refrigeration, all of it. You would basically be self-sustaining. You start looking at the utilities that even though if you manage to pay off your house, Believe me, it's not that hard to accomplish. It's just, it's like the big victory, and then you're like, okay, now what? Even when you pay off your house, you still have these basic things. Like, another one is water. How many times could you reuse the same water? They've made hydroloop systems these days. I was looking at the price of incinerator toilets. Some people talk about, oh, you got to have a septic, got to have this. Well, for instance, if I never had black water, would I really need a septic? Well, what about the gray water? A lot of it's recyclable. A lot of it could even if you didn't fully recycle it with a hydroloop, even though you could basically take that water and use it to water your crops outside. Use biocompatible soaps. That's actually a good comment there. Think about property taxes. And this is part of the reason I'm not huge on building anymore. Like, I was talking to a relative of mine, and I said, well, when it all pans out, if the housing market the way it is right now, I'm not going to make any money on that house. Sure, I'll have a big chunk of change, but when I look at the time that I spent, that's the big one. The initial, I bought it for 50 and probably 65 after all the interest and all the other shit. I don't know, 60, 65, because I paid it off pretty quick. And then I think the $80K I put into it, even if I sold it for $250,000 to $300,000, when I figure in my time and effort, yeah, I'm going to be making money, but I wouldn't say I made money on it, when I go to sell it, because it took up so much of my life and my time. People act like unpaid labor, ooh, it's just free. It's just free. No. That's if you took that same amount of effort, like, for instance, let's say I was driving a truck at the time, living in the truck, no house to worry about, no utilities, none of that shit. I could live off $3,000 to $5,000 a year as a truck driver, just like with van life. Houses, in my opinion, are a fucking horrible investment. If you're going to raise a family, you want to live there your whole life, I totally get it. But then you think about property taxes, just like commenter mentioned there. You do any sort of improvements to your house and someone comes along and they're like, you owe us more money because you made this place better. You made your local community better by improving your house. You took your capital that you worked off, you paid taxes on, and now we're going to tax you more because your house is nicer. You bought all these products locally too. Most of them at the local hardware stores because they're just get on the bike, go down the street. Now we're going to charge you more. I think about these things, and it just seems like we are designed to be indentured servants in this country. So when I do what I do out here, van life or trucking or whatever, that seems completely radical, doesn't it? It seems nuts. It's nuts. Why would you want to live in a vehicle? And the answer to that is really because I'm not getting screwed or as screwed by the system. Like, when I buy a cheap piece of land, I don't want to improve anything. I don't. Like, the only thing I want to improve is maybe put a good gravel pad there to park an RV on. And then one of my relatives was like, well, you could get one of those Connex boxes and bury it. And I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm at the point now where I have such a low trust in our society that I don't want to build or leave anything anywhere. It's just like an RV with a, what do we call it behind it? Like some type of Ford Maverick or something like that. A little hybrid pickup behind there where I can either plug it in or fill it up and it gets 35 to 40 to the gallon. Maybe a little boat. A boat with oars. I can't really not see what I've seen. I see a society that the food we don't grow food in our yards. We don't have houses that are sustainable. Like, you turn off the heat on your house will die. At least up north it will. Down south, the houses, the way they're designed there, you gotta have some central sort of system, air conditioning in those houses. Not just because it's hot, because it's fucking humid. everything about our way our life is designed is to be a payment plan. Credit cards as well. Interest payments. It's like, it's just funny to me. It's like, think about it from a tax. Everybody hates taxes, right? Everybody complains about. I often think property taxes are the least of my fucking worries. Like the water bill that I can't turn off up north, that's more of a pain in my ass than the property taxes. I'm not thrilled about the property taxes, but the water that I can shut it off at the Thiel, but I can't turn off the contract. The homeowner's insurance that constantly goes up. Like, you've never had a claim in your life, but it keeps going up. Everything is about a payment plan. Cars. You buy a car, a lot of people pay payments on it. And then by the time you're done paying it off, you basically need a new car. You spend how many hours of your life driving to work, giving up, let's say 35 to 45 minutes, so you better allocate an hour for traffic, or maybe more. So 2 hours a day. So your 8-hour day is now a 10-hour day. Oh wait, it's an 11-hour day because of lunch. Let's say you were making a paltry $25 an hour. That times 2 is $50 a day. On top of that, then the friggin' 5 days a week, and you just add that on to what your mortgage cost or your rent. Or you could just say you didn't get paid that. You just start adding it all up, and it's the entire world is built to be completely unsustainable and to constantly be a payment plan. I mean, that's just the way I look at it. And I don't know. When you start seeing houses, designs that were basically self-heating, self-cooling, and even if you didn't even have a fire or any sort of thing in the thermal mass stove, they'll still hold about 50, 60 degrees in the dead of fucking winter. Like, you could survive in that. Power goes out, pipes don't burst. Like, let that part sink in. Power go out, you don't die of heat exhaustion because the house is 50, 60 degrees year round. How much of that energy needed? How many watts, BTUs? Let's just go with watts. How many watts does the average house use just to maintain its existence? How many of those watts could you have put into an electric vehicle or an e-bike or something? You start adding that up. You start really thinking about that. And it's like, yeah. If the environmental movement really gave a shit, this is what they'd be talking about. It wouldn't be, hey, look at this furry animal, blah, blah, blah. They'd be like, well, yeah, we should build these style of houses. We should build these style of houses because, frankly, once you build it, it'll last generations. Once you build it, you never have to pay a heating bill again. Like, okay, maybe a little bit, but it's a fraction. And you think about the level of carbon we produce. Love it or hate it, carbon, given the choice, carbon's better than methane, but still, the level of carbon we produce on a daily basis, on all of our existence, all of that eliminated. And I'm just like, the fact that when you start seeing these sort of things, you can't unsee it. And then the vast majority of people, well, you were raised to be indentured servants. No one wants to be called a slave, but what do you call it? And happy slaves at that. Look at my big pickup truck, or my sports car, brr. Look at my McMansion, it's expensive to heat and cool. Look at my lawn that produces no food, but I still have to keep mowed, or the city shows up and tells me they're gonna fine me. Look at my payment plan. Look at my interest rate. Look at the house that I may or may never have paid off. Look, that is the average American. And I don't know, man. It's just kind of, It's kind of daunting. Like, imagine for a second if we didn't, okay, for instance, it's like the example of the Somali fraud and all the other fraud in America. Would we need property taxes whatsoever if we didn't have all this fraud? Would we need all this energy infrastructure improvements if we just built houses better? And the answer is no, we would not. We would not need all this extra shit. We wouldn't. But I know, I'm just pissing in the wind, or what's it called, pissing into the wind. I'm trying to raise the tide by pissing in the ocean, you know. But the fact that such basic thinking, you know, like I look at some of my videos, the ones that are really over the top, or I'm talking about a major issue, like whatever the big it thing is, for instance, Epstein or whatever Trump bungled on or had successful. I'll get quite a few views on those. But I talk about something that would fundamentally improve your life, just like when I talk about retirement by 30. And that's, for people, that's snoozeville. I think our entire system was set up to condition you to be a servant. And someone starts talking about, hey, here's how you can become an owner. You can have it to where you never have to work, you don't have to make payments anymore. Like, think about that for a second. Why is it? Like, and part of the reason, like I've talked about earth shelters, people say, well, where's your earth shelter? And I'm like, do you know how many regulations I'd have to deal with to build what I want to build? Do you know how many tens of thousands of dollars I'd have to spend just to get, you know, building approval on something like this? How much red tape is put in the way of doing something that works? Also, people will continue to build something that's fucking a failure. I mean, honestly, I just view normal houses as a failed design. They don't last. They're like, you look at some of these old houses over in Europe, and they've been there. They treated wood with like basic materials from back in the day, and that wood doesn't rot. You look at those Japanese houses where they do the burned wood on the outside, where it's a little bit burned on it, and then they scrape it off and then put a coating on it. It's like, it's hydrophobic, bug resistant, and it lasts hundreds of years. We're not building things better. There's some things that are better. I mean, okay, Roman concrete versus modern concrete. There's like pillars that are out in the sea that were built by the Romans, still there today. You know, we got concrete that was put in like not even 50 years ago with modern steel, and even steel has its problems, you know, modern rebar. Like the fact that it rusts, that it causes a little bit of issues inside of it. Good, rebar is good, don't get me wrong. But we haven't built things that are designed to last and ages. We've built things that are designed to be replaced. Look at a roof. You know, you see the shingles, and in 20 years, what's supposed to be a 30-year roof is looking kind of sad and has to be replaced. It's one of the reasons I tell people go with a metal roof. Not to mention if you want to collect your water from your roof as well. Like, yuck. Can you imagine collecting water from a roof, from a standard tar shingle roof? Oh my fucking God, that's nasty. I could see cedar shake, but can you find enough cedar shakes anymore? Maybe even clay tile, I could see that as well. But yeah, everything is a payment plan. At least that's my outlook. And when you free yourself from the normal reality, you're the weird one. No, I am. I am the weird one. Let's be honest about that. Normal is stupid. Smart is weird. Normal, just like what Dave Ramsey says, normal is making payment plans for years, decades. Normal is drowning in debt. Normal is a house that doesn't function the way it should. Normal is constantly being dependent off the system. Even if you work and pay your bills, you still have to go back to somebody else. And I think that the ultimate goal of everybody should be to be as self-reliant as absolutely possible, to make it to where you need other people as little as possible. Not because you dislike the rest of the world, but because you never want to have somebody able to put their thumb on you. You never want to be in that situation. But hey, like I said, it's like what I'm telling you is like pissing in the ocean trying to raise the tide. Freedom Phil, like, subscribe, take it easy.